Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, August 22nd, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. The weather in Riverside today is going to be quite intense, with a high of 99.4 degrees and a low of 72.5 degrees. So please be sure to find some shade and drink plenty of water if you are spending time outdoors this afternoon. Coming up on the program, we are going to take a closer look at serious allegations from a whistleblower claiming that the Trump administration manipulated probes into anti-Semitism as a means to extort universities. We will also be covering several other significant stories making headlines around the country that you need to know about today. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning. There's a growing controversy in Washington over how the Trump administration handled anti-Semitism investigations into some of America's top universities. A whistleblower says those probes were a setup. For the details, we're joined by our reporter, Ethan. Ethan, good to have you. Who is this whistleblower, and what exactly is she claiming?
Good morning, Grace. Her name is Haley Van Arum, and she was a career attorney in the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division. According to Democracy Now! And the Standard Examiner, citing the Associated Press, she filed a formal disclosure with the Office of Special Counsel and Inspectors General at both the DOJ and Health and Human Services. Her central claim is that a federal anti-Semitism task force ran what she calls an unlawful process designed to achieve predetermined political goals. In plain terms, she says the outcomes were decided before the investigations even happened.
That's a serious accusation. When did this task force actually get started?
It launched in February 2025 under then Attorney General Pam Bondi. Van Arum spent nearly a decade at the DOJ before she was involuntarily reassigned to HHS to work on Title VI investigations. She describes the task force's work as marked by, quote, extraordinary procedural irregularities, end quote, and a disregard for the law and the Constitution. She alleges the investigations were rushed, incomplete, and built to strong-arm schools into settlements, no matter what the evidence showed.
So she's saying this was really about money, not anti-Semitism?
That's the heart of it. She describes a politically mandated effort to extract money from institutions through settlement demands and funding freezes, all under the banner of rooting out anti-Semitism. What's striking is where she says it began. The scope reportedly started with a focus on anti-Semitic conduct at medical school commencement ceremonies, prompted by a New York Post story. From there, she says, it expanded to target entire universities.
Medical school graduations? That's an unusual starting point. Did it go beyond just the schools themselves?
It did, according to her complaint. Van Arum alleges that officials targeted professors specifically for their Muslim faith. She also says they went after Middle East Studies faculty based on the actual content of their academic work. That's a significant claim, because it suggests the investigations reached into protected speech and scholarship. Van Arum left the Justice Department in May 2025, which was about 15 months ago, to avoid further participation in what she called politically motivated investigations.
Let's talk about the schools. Which universities are at the center of this?
The complaint focuses on 3 Ivy League institutions, and each tells a different story. The first is Columbia University. The complaint acknowledges that some evidence of discrimination was actually found there. But Van Arum says the investigation was accelerated without adequate legal review, and it leaned on unsupported allegations from news reports and litigation filings, some of which implicated protected First Amendment activity.
How did things end for Columbia?
Columbia ultimately settled for $200 million to restore its access to federal funding. That settlement included a $21 million fund to compensate Columbia affiliates who claimed they suffered anti-Semitism on campus. But there's a critical voice here. Marianne Hirsch, a professor emerita at Columbia, told Democracy Now! These were, quote, sham investigations, end quote, and a, quote, ruse, end quote, to enact major funding cuts and silence pro-Palestinian voices. She also pointed out that the university never admitted any wrongdoing.
No admission of wrongdoing, but they still paid $200 million. What about the second school?
That's Brown University. and its case is even more pointed. Van Aerem alleges the investigative team found no evidence to support a Title VI violation. For context, Title VI bars discrimination in programs that receive federal funding. Despite that lack of evidence, she says leadership refused to issue what's called a notice of no violation, and instead pushed for a settlement anyway.
So they found nothing but still wanted a deal? How much did Brown end up paying?
Brown eventually paid $50 million to Rhode Island workforce development organizations. That money ended 3 federal investigations into antisemitism and racial bias in admissions. And again, there were no findings of wrongdoing. So you have a pattern the whistleblower is highlighting, where settlements happen regardless of whether investigators actually turned up violations.
That brings us to the third school. I understand Harvard took a different path.
Harvard did, and that's what makes it fascinating. The complaint alleges that officials discussed sweeping proposed settlement terms and extraordinary funding freezes before the investigations were even complete. Sean Keaveney, who was then the HHS acting general counsel, reportedly said he believed Harvard would settle because they were, quote, over a barrel, end quote. But Harvard refused to settle. They fought back instead.
And what happened when they fought?
A federal judge ordered the administration to reverse cuts of more than $2.6 billion in research funding. The judge ruled that the government had used anti-Semitism as a, quote, smokescreen, end quote, for what was described as an, quote, ideologically motivated assault, end quote. So a court essentially validated the core of what the whistleblower is alleging. There's also a related development. A separate lawsuit accusing Harvard of ignoring harassment of Jewish students was dismissed by a judge last week.
A judge using the word smokescreen is striking. How are lawmakers responding to all of this?
Representative Jamie Raskin, the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, has launched his own probe. He wrote a letter to Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon, and his language was blunt. Raskin described the anti-Semitism investigation as, quote, fake, end quote, and a, quote, pre-baked frame-up operation, end quote. He argued the whole project was designed to harass administrators and professors and to curtail academic freedom.
Does Raskin dispute that campus antisemitism is a real issue?
No, and that's an important nuance. Raskin explicitly acknowledged that anti-Semitism on campus is a real problem. His argument is narrower. He says this specific project wasn't a good faith effort to address it. Instead, he claims it was built to harass people, restrict speech, and strip universities of grants they had already earned on merit. So he's drawing a line between the genuine problem and what he sees as its political misuse.
And how is the Justice Department answering these claims?
The DOJ is standing firm. A department spokesperson named Kirsten Pelz said the department, quote, stands behind the integrity, end quote, of its investigations. So they're rejecting the whistleblower's characterization entirely. As for Health and Human Services, a spokesperson did not immediately respond to requests for comment. So we only have one side of the agency response at this point.
Before we wrap, Ethan, what should listeners watch for next?
The big thing to watch is Raskin's probe, and whether the inspectors general at the DOJ and HHS take up Van Aerem's disclosure formally. Those investigations could either corroborate or undercut her account. It's also worth watching whether other universities that settled, like Columbia and Brown, revisit those agreements now that a federal judge has questioned the underlying motives. And keep an eye on the courts, because the Harvard ruling gives other institutions a template for pushing back. This story really sits at the intersection of civil rights law, academic freedom, and political power.
A lot still to unfold there. Ethan, thanks so much for walking us through it.
My pleasure, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. Turning our attention to the books, the United States national debt has hit a staggering $40 trillion. Talk about a mountain of money that really puts us in the red. Over in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, health officials are fighting a viral battle as Ebola continues to spread like wildfire. Authorities report 5,290 confirmed cases and 2,516 deaths. UN Senior Coordinator Julian Harnais warns the outbreak is growing exponentially, covering an area larger than France. It is a race against time, as half of those deaths occurred in just the last 20 days. While 16,250 doses of the Ervebo vaccine have landed in Kinshasa, and the World Health Organization is promising 70,000 for health workers in trials, there is a catch. The vaccine is approved for the Zaire strain, but the current Bundibugyo strain is playing hard to get, leaving experts to rely on animal data to see if the shot actually works. Without more boots on the ground in remote eastern areas, this epidemic could easily cross borders. Now let's dance over to Washington, where the White House is getting a fancy new facelift. Chief Justice John Roberts has issued a temporary order to keep the $400 million ballroom project moving forward. This ruling puts a freeze on lower court attempts to halt construction over a lack of congressional approval. The project is truly a whirlwind of activity, with a 250-person crew working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. The final space will be 90,000 square feet, with $200 million in private donations already on the table. The Supreme Court has yet to give us the full choreography or a timeline for a final decision, but for now, the party continues. In political news, California has a new star in the making. Democrat Aisha Wahab is projected to win a special election for a vacant U.S. House seat, capturing over 53% of the vote over her opponent, Melissa Hernandez. This victory is a historic milestone, as Wahab will be the first Afghan-American member of Congress. She takes over the seat previously held by Eric Swalwell, who stepped down following allegations of misconduct. This win shifts the House balance to 213 Democrats and 218 Republicans. However, this is just a prelude, as Wahab and Hernandez will face off again in November for a full 2-year term. Finally, in a brief update from the Middle East, Israel has offered condolences to the families of slain Gaza aid workers, but they have made it clear they will not open a probe into the killings. That is the latest for now. Stay tuned for more updates. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.